Lane says, hey guys, I have a client that is asking for help with getting more leads. I know I can definitely help them with some basic local SEO and PPC. However, my concern is that they are very disorganized and won't be properly managing the leads. That's a problem, by the way. That happens a lot too. How would you approach the situation so that they will have maximum chances of benefiting off of all the work that I do for them and not just run all over the place and not return calls, etc. Yeah, that's one of the things that is a problem, because if you find a lead buyer, or you're just doing even traditional SEO, like retainer-based services, and you start generating more leads for your client, or service provider, whatever, and they have a shitty sales system and no follow-up and everything else, then they're going to tell you that your leads suck or that you're not doing your job, because they're going to project their inadequacies onto you. Right? That's what people do. People very, very rarely do people take ownership of their own problems. They always want to pass blame to everyone else. We hear it all the time. Okay. All the time, right? Your stuff doesn't work. Yeah, of course it doesn't. Never mind the fact that you didn't do it. But anyway, what I'm saying is the same thing goes with clients. If you start generating more leads for a company that has a shitty follow-up system, they don't return calls, or they don't answer the phone when the calls come in and things like that, they're going to tell you that your SEO isn't working for them, even though you are absolutely generating more calls. Or they're going to tell you that the leads that you've generated suck. No, your sales process sucks. Your follow-up system sucks. You know what I mean? Like, and so that is definitely a problem. So you have to, in my opinion, also to elevate your status and your value to a company, instead of just generating the leads, you can always approach them as like a business advisor and help them to also improve their business operations, right? And that certainly raises your status and your value to them. You become much more valuable and a lot less likely for them to shit can you later because they have a shitty sales system and they want to blame you, right? Hopefully that's clear. I'm just saying, like, it makes sense to not just be a lead generator and an SEO, but a business advisor, right? Because then you can tell them, like, listen, I can generate some more leads for you, but if you don't have a good CRM, a good follow-up system, good sales process and everything else, then how are you going to increase your closing rate if you have a shitty sales system? Just because we increase the inputs doesn't mean that you're going to have any more success, right? So you can help them to optimize that process. Again, a great way to do this is, I don't know if you're familiar with High Level, but High Level is a fantastic marketing automation platform, but it can be used as a CRM. And I push all my tree guys on the High Level if they want to have some sort of a lead gen relationship with me. Retainer-based clients don't have to be, but if they're buying leads from me or they're doing revenue share model with me or whatever, I force them on the High Level now, because I know most tree guys, they treat their businesses on, they literally have a clipboard and a notebook or a legal pad, and that's, or a planner. And they do, most tree guys that I've dealt with are old school and they use pen and paper. And so they've got really crappy follow-up systems, and some of them are more organized than others. There's no question, but a lot of them are pretty bad at that. So if I'm going to work with them on a lead generation basis, no matter how I monetize that, I tell them, okay, if we're going to work together, you're going to have to be on my, what I call lead management app or Tree Care HQ app, whatever. And so I only charge them $100 a month for that, but it's a 5-stage pipeline that automates all the follow-up. It builds a customer list so that we can send out review requests and do database or list reactivation later. We can send out a quarterly newsletter where we can, at the change of every season, we can send out an email blast to their customer list saying, like, hey, these are the tree services that you should be considering as the seasons are changing, et cetera. So again, that's what I call shaking the bushes, which generates more work from an existing customer list. Also, it sends out automated appointment reminders, like scheduled estimates, scheduled jobs, appointment reminders and things like that. Automated review requests. When a job is marked as complete, it automatically sends it out. These are all things that you should, or can and should, in my opinion, be offering to a company if they have a poor follow-up and sales and tracking system, right? And again, High Level is very good for this kind of thing, because it has a learning curve, but once you learn it, you can create a very simple app like what I've done for my tree guys. It's a 5-stage pipeline. All they have to do, quote in, estimate scheduled, proposal pending, job scheduled, job complete. 5 stages. That's it. The contact comes in, they open up the opportunity card. They call the contact to say, hey, listen, I got your estimate, your request for an estimate. When's a good day and time for us to meet? They figure that out. Then he plugs that in using the calendar system built into the app. He plugs that, assigns that day and time to that contact. And then that automatically moves the contact record in, or the opportunity card as it's called, into the next stage, which is quote or estimate scheduled. And that sends out appointment reminders to the customer, right? Saying, hey, your quote has been, your estimate or whatever has been scheduled for whatever the day and time is. Then 24 hours ahead of time, they get an email and an SMS. And then 2 hours ahead of time, they get an email and an SMS, right? And then afterwards, that once he goes and schedules the job, or surveys the job and writes up the estimate, the proposal, the written estimate, which is called a proposal, then he presents the proposal to, or they're not all, well, all of my tree contractor clients are men, so I can say that. He will send it to the client, the customer, and then the card moves into the proposal pending stage, at which point it waits 3 days and then sends an email reminder. Hey, because if the customer hasn't responded to either accept or reject the proposal within 3 days, they get an email stating like, hey, just a reminder to review the proposal and reply back, do you accept or reject? And then once it's accepted, then he calls the client back or the customer back again and says, okay, let's schedule your job. It's a different calendar, right? It's 2 calendars built into the app. There's the quote calendar and the job calendar. And so then he schedules on the job calendar the day and time, and then moves it into job scheduled, and boom, again, appointment reminders go out. And then the last stage is once the job is completed, he goes in the opportunity card, he puts in the value of the contract, or he could have done that at the proposal stage, it doesn't matter. So now there's a value assigned to that client, and then he marks it once the job is complete, he just moves it into the job complete stage, and that sends out the review request for the Google Business Profile. And again, even a lead generation asset, it sends out the review request for my lead gen asset. Does that make sense? So then and now he's got the contact in a database that can be reactivated later. So, and again, that's only $100 a month that I charge for that. But that does a lot to help. Look, just in, when I include the high level app, or what I call the lead management app, and an answering service, which that's an additional charge, but that's something else, by the way, that with tree contractors, if I implement a 24-hour answering service for them, instead of sending calls directly, I do not send calls for any of my lead gen assets, or any of my buyers, or anybody that buys leads from me. They don't get calls directly from my assets. Every single one of the leads that I generate goes through a call center. So I have a 24-hour answering service I've been using since 2014. It's called answerconnect.com. answerconnect.com. That's who I've been using since 2014. And every lead that I generate, period, goes through the call center, unless it's a web form, an estimate request form, quote request form that was submitted. And that's just, was done online. But every phone call goes through the answering service. And just implementing that alone for tree contractors, even after the expense of the lead management app and the answering service, they increase their revenues by 30% on average. Like, without generating any additional leads, they increase their revenue from the same number of leads by 30%, even after the expense of the lead management app and the answering service. Why? Because tree service contractors are generally, at least the companies I work with, are very small, usually 1 crew operation. Sometimes they might have 2 or 3 crews, but most of the time they're 1 crew operation, which means the owner of the company is generally a working contractor, which means they're out managing their crew, or up in a tree, or running the equipment, the tree equipment, that kind of stuff. So they don't answer the phone a lot of the times when calls come in. So they miss leads. And if I'm generating a lead and I'm getting paid on pay per lead, or pay per, or what I call revenue share model, which is I only get paid when they close a lead, right? They've closed a lead to turn into revenue, then I get a percentage of that. If I'm generating calls that aren't getting answered, then I'm losing money You understand? So again, I want every call that I generate to go to a call center so that it's answered. Then we get the contact information. Then it's up to the contractor to follow back up. But again, that's where high-level app comes in again, because every time a call comes through my answering service, there's a Zapier zap that pushes that data into the high-level app, which then sends, so creates the opportunity card in the quote request column or stage, and then it sends a notification to the contractor, quote request received. Log into the high-level app to process. And so they, again, right from their mobile phone, they can tap the link, it brings them into their high-level app, and then it pulls up the contact record, they call the contact to schedule the job, they pull up the quote calendar, schedule the job, and then boom, it goes in the next stage and sends it out. Hopefully that's clear. But just what I'm saying is just an answering service alone for tree contractors generally, on average, increases their revenue with no additional leads generated by 30%. So something like that, again, Lane, is I would highly recommend that you work something into your product offerings or service offerings that is a solution for companies that have shitty follow-up and sales systems. And try to keep it simple. I don't know what industry you're in, but in the tree service industry, I've got tree contractors that just will refuse to use the app. And so I've actually customized some of, like, to where they can do things via text. The high-level app sends the text message to the contractor notifying they got a job with the contact details, and then they can send a text back to high-level saying, like, quote scheduled, and then that automatically will move the card into the next thing. It's an automation that I set up for some of my older tree contractors, when I mean like older in age, that don't want anything to do with using an app on their phone, which happens. So anyway, all I'm saying is, if you want to increase the revenue, and if you got, like, they're going to blame, companies are going, I've heard it a lot, where companies will blame you and your leads for their shitty sales process. So it's in your best interest to try to help them to optimize that process a bit. And therefore, again, a lot of the times that alone, even without you generating more leads, will help them to be more profitable. So it's a valuable skill to learn and then work that into your service offerings. Hopefully that's clear.